Hey listeners, you're listening to the SkulChat podcast.
This is where we have amazing conversations with some of the most influential people in the industry to help you better your studies and keep you updated about what's happening.
And this podcast is brought to you by
SkulChat, an online learning platform for high school and tertiary students with all the learning resources a student will ever need.
Visit SkulChat.com to sign up now. I'm your host, Tato Kholwane.
And I'm your co-host, Thabo Sello.
Welcome to the podcast.
Before I started Abroad Studies Academy, I was working as Education USA advisor, working for US Embassy in Maseru. I've helped two students who got into Ivy League schools. One is from Lesotho and the other one is from Thailand. And they both got into Harvard. And most people, their mindset and their strategy and everything would be solely based on I want to get in and I want to earn some income, but they don't think about what will I be bringing to this company and what value will I be adding to this company. So that goes into the application process.
Hey guys, welcome to the SkulChat podcast. On this episode, we have Limpho Phokojoe. She's the founder of Abroad Studies Academy.
Limpho, welcome to the podcast. So, can you please tell us about Abroad Studies Academy?
Okay, Abroad Studies Academy is a company that is aimed at helping international students to access full scholarships to study abroad, as well as to grab jobs abroad, either working at the location or working remotely. So basically, that's what we do at Abroad Studies Academy.
So before you started Abroad Studies Academy, what were you doing and what influenced you to get into this journey?
Before I started Abroad Studies Academy, I was working as Education USA advisor, working for US Embassy in Maseru. And my role was to help Basotho students to study in the US via scholarships, either partial or full scholarships for both undergraduate and postgraduate. And then once I was done working at the embassy, I decided to continue doing the services that I was doing at the embassy. So in late 2018, I started helping people one-on-one. And then later on, I realized that a lot of people really need the services that I was offering. So I decided I should do it via a registered company. That way they have the legitimacy and they know that they're working under a legit company. So that's why I started Abroad Studies Academy.
Your services, are they free or do people pay? Like, how does that work?
I have different services. There are those that are offered under the free plan, and then there are also services offered under the paid plan. Yes, I offer both services under paid and unpaid.
All right. Could you please give us like examples of students you've helped, if you have any with you right now?
For the students that I help, we have a specific contract that we sign for information legitimacy and certain TLCs. So I won't be mentioning names. I'm sorry about that because I should have inquired from the students, but I'm going to mention the students who are back in their home countries who I've already helped. So I helped a student from Lesotho, Thuso Matseleban. He studied in the US at Oklahoma University. And I also helped a student, so she's currently studying at Kent University in UK. She's doing her master's there. I'm sorry I can't mention her name because Contracta Rona was very limiting for information disclosure, so I can't mention her name unless she gives permission to. So there's also another student in Rwanda who is studying in Italy at Bocconi University. So those are like the current students that I've helped. Other than that, there are students who were enrolled from 2019 and 2020 academic year.
So if somebody wants to be part of Abroad Studies Academy and they also want to go overseas, what's the requirements Because sometimes you find that you want to apply, but then people say, it's for certain courses, not everyone. Is there such a thing where, like, if you're doing a certain course, you're not going to get a scholarship? Like, what's needed for people to apply?
Okay, let me just break that myth. It's not true. Anyone can apply to study abroad, irregardless of your grades, irregardless of like your academic background or any broad background that you have, either a financial background or where you grew up. Just a disclaimer, anyone can study abroad. That's just a myth about there are only certain people who can study abroad doing certain courses. Any course, you can do any course abroad as long as you have acquired admission to an university, and maybe if you are seeking admission with financial support, then you apply for financial aid. And once those two are in place, then you are able to study abroad. So there are no limitations as to who can study abroad. Obviously, some schools will need you to be a good working student, but that's a package. It doesn't necessarily just mean you have to be a good working student. Student academically. You have to have balance in between academics as well as like extracurricular activities. So mainly schools abroad focus on what you do outside of school so that they understand what makes you a well-rounded person. So their focus is not just academics, they're also focused on what you do, especially because some people might shy away from applying because maybe they think their grades are not good enough. That's just one limiting factor. Let me just put it that way. If you feel like you want to apply for any school abroad and maybe you look into their admission requirements and you find that they need certain entry requirements, and you feel like you don't meet such, and then you shy away from applying, that's just you like taking yourself out of the race before you even start. Because what I can tell you is that I've helped two students who got into Ivy League schools. One is from Lesotho and the other one is from Thailand, and they both got into Harvard. At first, during the application process, the guy from Lesotho had his limiting beliefs that he won't be able to get into Harvard, but he wanted to get into Harvard. So he thought that his grades were not good enough. He also thought that whatever he was doing outside class wasn't good enough compared to what the Harvard League, I would use the word league, is considered to have. So while we are going through the application process, he discovered that that's actually just a limiting belief. And the fact that he was from Lesotho with the things that he had achieved made him unique enough to get accepted. Like I said earlier, that's just a limiting belief and everyone can get into any school abroad.
Still on that topic, I'm sure to apply abroad, you have to go through a certain process or prepare certain documents. I'd like to know, like, what are some of the documents like people need to prepare and how do you help them through the process?
Okay, so yes, the application process to apply to schools abroad is very different from what we go through here home. Also, there are certain things to consider when applying. Let me talk about, or in fact, let me start with the documentation that is needed. You're gonna need your transcript, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have to apply only once you are completed, say your high school. Say you're a high school student and you want to apply to a university in the US or Canada or wherever. You need to apply with your transcripts of your final year. If maybe you are doing like your final year of high school, you can apply using that. And maybe you've just written your final examination to graduate from high school, but the results are not out as yet. You can still apply with your mid-year reports or mid-year results. So basically, that's the transcripts that they're looking for. If you are just graduated from high school, so you're like a high school graduate, then you apply with your high school transcripts as well as your high school diploma, or what is known as high school certificate. For people who just did maybe their first year into university, maybe they are studying in university back home and they find that maybe they're not interested in whatever they're doing and they want to switch or want to apply to another university, then they can also do that. So there's two parts for people who want to apply. So you can apply using two methods. The first one is applying as a first year student. So basically you're gonna start over and maybe say you've already finished your first year of studies, then you can apply as a transfer student. So that means you're gonna start at second year, depending if the school accepts your grades for your first year, your first year of studies. So you're going to apply as a transfer student. So basically, those are like sort of terms that they use in certain countries and in certain admission levels. And for people who may be applying for graduate level, basically you'll be applying as a master's student or as a PhD student if you're applying for postgraduate studies. And the documentation that is needed, it's basically the same for any level. They're going to need your transcripts. They're going to need your extracurricular activities. So basically, that's what you do outside of class. And this obviously differs from undergraduate level compared to graduate level, because for undergrad, it's two different types of students. So it's people fresh from high school or people who had graduated from high school. Maybe they have been doing something in between graduating and enrolling or potentially enrolling in another school. So you attempt as an undergrad and you attempt as a freshman. But for people who have had college education or who have had university experience, then they attempt as transfers, because they'll either be transferring from a certain university to another. So they don't apply as freshmen or as freshmen. So those are what are required for the undergrad level, or any other volunteer experience that somebody would have gathered. Then that was also added to their application file, and usually that strengthens the application file for any student. So that would be for undergraduate level, except that sometimes you will find that for students who come from countries where English is not the main language, you'll find that schools would require you to write English language tests. So those English language tests would be TOEFL or IELTS, depending on the school. And for the most part, most of my students, like those who are from Lesotho, I've been able to have that requirement waived, because obviously Lesotho uses English as its official language. So it gives us the right to have the the English test requirement waived, unlike other students from different countries where English is not an official language and also are used as mode of instruction at schools. So you'll find that they have to take the English test. So that would be that for undergraduate level. And then going to graduate level, as I did mention, the requirement would be people should submit their transcript as well as their certificates or diploma. And then they will have to submit their work experience as well as their resume. If somebody is going to apply for a master's course or a master's program, then it means they have completed undergraduate level and maybe they've already acquired some sort of work experience from what they did. And maybe if this person doesn't have any work experience per se, or like professional work experience, volunteer experience still qualifies as in this category. And for people who have that strengthens their application profile. So that's all I can share in regarding the application requirements.
All right, thank you. So for students from Lesotho, there's usually the option of applying for scholarships through NMDS and applying directly. Which would you recommend for Lesotho students? Which one is easier, or which one would you recommend, and why would you recommend that route?
Okay, thanks for that. I want to just put this disclaimer so that people don't quote me. But what I would recommend is that people should apply directly from the schools, especially if you're going to, in fact, there's no specifics here. For any students who want to study abroad on scholarships mainly, I would advise that they use school-specific form of application as opposed to applying via Manpower. The reason I'm saying this is because based on people that I've helped to attain certain scholarships to study abroad via Manpower, their experience has not been nice, honestly. And one of the students that I've helped, who is currently still studying, I helped her acquire the Cuban scholarship. So she's studying medicine in Cuba currently. She should be on her last year. She's been struggling together with some of the students that she left with. basically because of the financial constraints. So for people who apply directly from schools that they want to study at, it's usually easier and the more sort of comforting direction that I would advise somebody to take, because you know that if the school says we are gonna give you 100% scholarship, you know obviously that everything is going to be taken care of, and you know that you won't out of classes because maybe your government didn't pay any fees, and you know you won't go hungry because your government didn't pay you your living expenses. So that's just my opinion and my advice. People may beg to differ because people have different experiences, but generally I would advise.
So I looked at your content earlier and I realized you also help people to take online courses, the ones with certification. And
Yes.
the one thing I've realized is we believe education to be like this expensive thing, and once it becomes free, like we doubt it. I just wanted for you to help us. What's the importance of the online courses with certification, especially the free ones?
Okay, I'm gonna delve in two different reasoning. The first one is most people believe that obviously they believe that you need to invest in education to feel that it's legit and to have that guarantee that maybe you'll have certain benefits once you're done with whatever studies you'll be enrolled in. Most people would opt to pay for a certain course and have a mentality or an assumption that because I've paid for this course, then I know I'll have like certain benefits after. But let me break it to you. For somebody who is studying a certain diploma or a degree online under a paid version or under any investment of some sort, obviously because paying for education is investment, and comparing that person with somebody online doing the same degree or the same diploma under a free version, those people are going to get the almost similar content. Let's say it's from the same university and you decide to apply for a certain diploma and somebody else is under the free version. You guys are going to get the same content, you're going to get the same lectures, and you're going to get the same degree or certificate, as we say it, or diploma. So essentially, it's just the mentality part of understanding that certain schools have made it a point to avail the education that they offer to different people. So that is why they have decided that they would give this courses for free and as well as offer the certification. So I realized that for majority of people who reach out to me, sometimes on LinkedIn or in like social platforms, some would have doubts about learning through free education. Similarly, with the same question that you have just asked, and my answer is always that free education is valuable. It's equally valuable to the education that you would pay. Take an example with the universities in some countries, like majority of European countries offer education for free, irrespective of you're an international student or not. The education is free, and those are like renowned universities, like top class universities that are ranked high worldwide, and people go for them. But then when it comes to online, people have doubts. So my answer is, my response to this would be, it's all about mentality. If you believe that studying online for free poses as a threat or sort of a scam, as opposed to studying at the same university but under a paid plan, honestly, that's all about mentality.
This podcast is brought to you by
SkulChat, an online learning platform for high school and tertiary students with all the learning resources a student will ever need.
Visit SkulChat.com to sign up now. I've realized that we've been talking about like scholarships in schools, which I think would be easier to get being like education. But what are the chances of getting a job abroad? That's one of the things you help people get, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So this is gonna honestly rely on the strength of your application. It's gonna rely on the strength of the qualities that you will bring to whatever job you'll be applying for, and the strategy that you will use. So usually most people would have like multiple rejections from companies that they would apply to, mainly because either they are using the same resume or CV for all the jobs that they apply to. So usually what I teach in my program is a CV or resume to suit the job specification or the job description of whatever that company is looking for. People who got rejected from their applications to multiple job positions, it's when you go deeper into like digging what went wrong or why they've been getting negative results all the time. Usually what I find is that the strategy that they use to apply firstly was very weak or sometimes not so clear as to why they want to apply to that particular company in the first place. The second thing would obviously be strategy or CV. So as I just said, you'll find that somebody would apply for an architectural job with a design or let me say a design, and those are like two different fields, but because maybe they feel like certain aspects of their job application, maybe they feel like I fit into this, then they'll just send in their application without thoroughly understanding what the job requires and without understanding what they as a person will bring to the company. So as long as people understand that applying to companies abroad or wherever, you have to understand as a job applicant is that applying for a job is a 50-50 opportunity, in a sense that a company wants something out of you, you also want something out of the company. Either you want to get hired and obviously have some income, they want that done, and they want that done by somebody else. And if that somebody is you, then the company benefits from you and you benefit from the company. So it's sort of a 50-50 tie. And most people, their mindset and their strategy and everything would be solely based on, I want to get in and I want to earn some income, but they don't think about what will I be bringing to this company and what value will I be adding to this company. So that goes into the application process. And this goes for either remote jobs or like relocating to a certain country. It's solely based on the strategy of your application, your strength of your application profile or your application documents, either your resume, as I did mention, and your cover letter. So the same thing applies with the cover letter. If the company is requesting you to submit your cover letter, you have to make sure that your cover letter is structured or tailored for that position which the company has opened for. You can't apply to all those jobs with the same application or cover letter. When it comes to documentation that maybe would be accompanied for the job, let me make an example with the creative industry. Sometimes we'll find that certain jobs would require somebody to submit a portfolio. And then that's where your creativity will have to show itself. And it differs with certain companies, it differs with individuals as well, like what value you will be bringing to the company, and that has to show in the work that you want to do. So essentially that's all that's needed to acquire a job abroad, either working remotely or relocating.
You just talked about some of these companies would want you to submit something like your portfolio or some of the work you've done. Maybe you're creative. What about the students with no experience? What are some of the tips you'd give them to structure their resume in such a way that gives them a bigger shot at landing those jobs?
Okay, I would start with, let me make the same example as I did about a creative industry. And let me say you are just graduated from university and you graduated as a graphic designer. And then you're seeking a job, you don't have experience. Like I said, you just graduated. So usually what I advise within the program is that for people who just graduated, they should opt for entry-level jobs, because obviously entry-level jobs sort of tight application requirements. Obviously, if it's entry-level job, the pay is also going to scale, and usually that will be determined by the sort of, if they give you a probation period, then that's gonna sort of skyrocket as you work through the months of your probation. But let me just start with what people are usually looking for, which is pay. Entry-level job, the pay is not going to be as high as somebody who applied for a senior level job, obviously, or a middle the middle entry job. So that's what you have to bear in mind. The second thing that you have to bear in mind, which will be an opportunity for you as an applicant, is that the entry requirements for that job won't be as hard as opposed to applying for a middle level job or senior level job. And also for people who don't have any sort of experience but they want to work. So what I would advise them to do, especially if maybe you want to work, say, remotely, we all know that there's a lot of opportunities available to us. I could advise somebody who is a graphic designer, design something and then have that documented somewhere via recording. You could document it via pictures. The second advice that I would give them is to build a community somewhere. In fact, in the creative industry, they want to see that you have done something. They can't just hire you and assume that you'll be able to do the job. So you gotta build a community somewhere to show that you can be able to implement whatever theoretical knowledge you gained. So, for example, the easiest way that people could actually implement the things that they learned to attain the skills is either by starting a Facebook group or a Facebook page and showcase whatever skills they may have or whatever theory that they may have and implement it. And that way, it means you're gonna perfect your skills as you go through the learning curve of like showing whatever creatives that you have. Or let me make an example of somebody who might be looking for a social media managing position, and then they apply to this company without experience. If I was that company, I wouldn't hire anyone without experience, because obviously, as a manager or as an employee, as an employer, what I'm looking for is for somebody who would be able to do their job. I'm not going to hire somebody who will need me to teach them how to do their work, at the same time expect me to pay them at the end of the month or whatever term that the payment will come at. What I can tell you right now is that in the job market, as we speak, marketing termed under the social space has a lot of opportunities. And for people who don't have the skills to apply for certain like I did make an example of social media marketing manager, I would advise that person they should start a social media. In fact, let me make an example with Facebook. They should start in a Facebook page or a Facebook group. In fact, a page is more likely to land you a job than a group. So you can start a Facebook page and be able to showcase whatever marketing skills or marketing theory that you learned in school. And also what you could also do, which will get you into the job quicker, is to approach local business struggling on Facebook or are struggling on social platforms, which you may have knowledge of, and then tell them that I can do this for you for free as long as you take care of my data or Wi-Fi costs. So most companies will be more than willing to offer you such, and that's how you gather experience to be able to apply with it. And majority of us youth in the country spend a lot of our time on Facebook, but we don't necessarily do things that develop us as individuals. So I would advise for the time that maybe you spend, either Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, you name them, ensure that there's a certain skill that you earn at the end of the day, and that skill can be applied to whatever job that you want to apply for. So that would be my advice.
For people who are interested in your services, what are the challenges that they should expect in the process of the applying for a job, or like applying for a scholarship or applying into the university? What are the challenges in the process?
Okay, so the first challenge that I will point out is the time frame or the timeline. The second challenge would be my program runs as online, 100% online. I do sometimes hold like in-person meetings or in-person sessions, but that's like 1% of the time. Like majority of the time, everything that we do 100% online. So if somebody is not tech savvy, sometimes we'll find that maybe they slack in the program, or maybe they are sort of dragging at a certain level. And then the other challenge that people would expect or should expect is the terms in the application process. So these terms are different irrespective of different countries, obviously. So sometimes when the student applies, in as much as we would have provided a certain guide which will help them with the application process, and maybe even had a sort of a session to help them out, still not understand it, we wouldn't expect you to understand them right away. We do have meetings each week where we let them throw out any questions that they may have and help them understand the application more better. So that would be another challenge, which is like the terms used. And then let's talk about what's already prevailing, which is this COVID era. So for people who have gotten their admissions and their scholarships, and then they're ready to leave, or sort of like 90% ready to leave, dealing with the visa has been a challenge because of like the lockdown restrictions and certain companies closing down. I mean, certain countries closing down. So that would be another challenge for people who want to study abroad right now, but that is not a challenge that can be overcome because currently a lot of countries have like sort of uplifted their lockdown restrictions and their travel bans. So it's only a limited number of countries which still have like strict lockdown restrictions. And then still on the COVID issue or COVID topic, some countries have just released a list of schools or a list of universities which require international students to have tested for COVID before they come to school. So that would be another challenge for somebody coming from a country where maybe they haven't, I mean, their country doesn't offer the COVID injection to anyone. Like Lesotho, we have certain people who are vaccinated and majority of people are not vaccinated. So if you fall under that category of people who are not vaccinated, then you may have a problem. So that would be the challenges that somebody would expect once they're in the program.
Okay, so for people who have already gotten the admissions and they're either on the way to their destinations and stuff, what are the resources that you can offer or that you do offer when they face problems in their destinations and stuff? Because, I mean, moving from one country to another is not an easy thing to do. So what are the resources that you know of or that your company offers to those kind of people? And are they always available?
Okay, so we have sort of a co-ed network, which basically means that we have a network with the schools that our students will go to, the international community to be specific, so that once the student have gone to the school that they would be studying at, the transition is much easier and much bearable. So we induct, in fact, we take our students through the orientation stage even before they leave, so that we know everything is in place, and things from documentation packages that they would need to leave the country. Like, say, let me make an example of a Mosotho student maybe leaving for US. Make sure that they have the right documentation needed, especially the immigration documents needed, and ensure that they have the insurance that they need for their travel. So usually that would be included in the scholarship that they acquired from their admission decisions. And then obviously the package also now currently includes the COVID insurance. And then once the student travels, we make sure that when they get to the immigration stand on the other side, or let me make an example of a student who has to connect to a different country, we make sure that whatever regulations that are in place, especially regarding COVID, they are taken care of. And once they are at their final destination, like before crossing over into the country, we make sure that they get the help they need. Like they're 100% prepared for any questions that they may arise or any sort of documentation that they may have need. And usually the school arranges for transportation from airport to the school residence where the student will obviously be staying for the duration of the course. And once the student gets to the school, they go through orientation phase. And this usually depends on the program that the student will be enrolled in. And this obviously also depends or differs from school to school. For some schools, orientation sometimes takes 2 weeks. So they make sure that you are 100% oriented into the school and you are comfortable, and maybe you have dealt with a lot of things like time zone differences, things like culture shock, and things like adapting to different foods. And so they make sure that you have dealt with that before enrolling into classes. So those are some of the things that we provide and make sure that the students are well transitioned from their home country to their final destination.
This podcast is brought to you by
SkulChat, an online learning platform for high school and tertiary students with all the learning resources a student will ever need.
Visit SkulChat.com to sign up now. So essentially what you're saying is that even after they have arrived in their destination or in the university, you guys are still helping them and you're still there for them until they complete the course.
Yes, 100%. I remember last year there was the student in the US who didn't understand like the precautions or sort of the regulations that she had to go under. Like that was like early last year, like when the lockdown was heavily in place. And the studies were starting to be fully engaged online. So, and then like international students, obviously because the studies were like moved to the online learning methods, most university students are, well, from that country, obviously are from home and like from home to school on a daily basis. And those who stay in the residence are usually international students. And most of them went through a lot of turmoil in terms of mental health because they didn't know what to do and they felt a lot more homesick than usual due to the prevailing circumstance that was taking place. So we had to make sure that she gets all the information that she needed in terms of any health related help that she might need. And obviously that was through the help of the school that she is studying at. So yes, we do make sure that our students are well. Once our students are done with the application process, say, well, we are done with you, you can take care of yourself. We still do check on our students to make sure that they are well. And obviously because our students are our ambassadors of our program, so what usually happens is that when our students who are currently enrolled reach a certain stage of the application process, we ensure that we pair them with the students who are already enrolled at different schools as sort of like a peer-to-peer mentor. That it's not as yet the program that we are using, but at the moment, that's what we do. So we wouldn't be able to do that if we say, now that we have dealt with what you wanted to get, then we don't know you anymore. No, we wouldn't be able to do what we are doing. So that's that.
So earlier you touched on something that's very interesting, that the majority of us young people are on the social networks like Facebook and TikTok. And most of the time we are not doing beneficial things in terms of our career. And I had some very big companies saying, when they read applications, the first thing they, even before they read an application, they get your name and they look at your LinkedIn profile. And young people are not on LinkedIn. So for the students who are listening, what's the importance of having a LinkedIn profile, and what's the advice that you'd give them when setting up their LinkedIn profile?
Okay. So in respect to LinkedIn, for majority of recruiters, if not all, when they accept your application, sometimes it's within the strategy that they use to scale if you will be a good fit for their company or not. And maybe if they're interested in your application, they see the potential in the person that they're looking for, then the first thing that they're going to do is use the ATS system. So the ATS system is application tracking system. So it checks all the information that they need. So before they move you to the next stage, that's where they'll go to the socials to look you up and see the kind of information maybe you have on social media. And then obviously this also includes LinkedIn, and you potentially may be on their interview list, but then when they go through your LinkedIn profile, they find you are not a good fit. That would be a turn off. So what usually happens is that majority of people don't take LinkedIn seriously for certain reasons, which I don't know, but I know a lot of people don't take LinkedIn seriously and they don't understand how to operate LinkedIn or how to set it up. And I can't blame them because it's it's usually based on personal preference. It's usually based on maybe the type of knowledge they have. But usually what I would advise, in fact, what I would advise a person who doesn't have a LinkedIn profile or who has a LinkedIn profile that doesn't meet any standard of applying for a certain job is that they should optimize their profile, because majority of people also don't understand LinkedIn is sort of your resume and social in the same platform. So LinkedIn is your digital resume or digital CV. So that's where you store in whatever you have in terms of education, in terms of experience, in terms of hobbies, in terms of activities, in terms of the certification that you have acquired, and then in terms of any publications that you may have, especially for people in the creative industry or anyone who have had any publications. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in the creative industry. So essentially how this person has to set up their LinkedIn profile, it's in a way that a recruiter, because due to COVID, a lot of companies transitioned online recruitment. So unlike submitting your CV in a PDF and submitting everything else in a document method, is just scan over your LinkedIn. And if you have a LinkedIn profile, then that's like more easier work for them. So they don't need any documentation from you if they have your LinkedIn profile. So their ATS system is also linked to LinkedIn. So it makes easy for recruiters to just scan through your LinkedIn profile and see if you meet the requirements, and if not, then they pass on to the next person. So that's how majority of people fail to get into jobs, because of their profile, because it's not well optimized. So for people who don't know where to start in terms of how can I get started in this, Abroad Studies Academy has a YouTube channel, so they can go there. Also, while on YouTube, there are so many other tutorials that they can look up to set up their LinkedIn profiles. If maybe they have certain restrictions into using YouTube, maybe due to say data issues, we have a Facebook group where I offer this free content on a weekly basis, and usually majority of the content that I share is around LinkedIn and finding jobs via LinkedIn. So if they would hang out in there, they'll also find this value. And just also like following certain people on their social media platforms who are sharing valuable information regarding the things that they need. So that is my contribution regarding this question.
Thank you so much for that.
So, on wrapping up, where can people find you in case they want to be part of Abroad Studies Academy and maybe they want to watch your content? How can people get hold of you?
Okay, I am on YouTube, just like I did mention. They can just go to YouTube and search Abroad Studies Academy and they'll find our YouTube account. Go on Instagram, still it's Abroad Studies Academy. We are available on Facebook. Also, it's Abroad Studies Academy. And then I'm also, like I did mention, operating with Youth Opportunities Lesotho Facebook group. So the group is managed by Abroad Studies Academy social media manager, but the content which is shared by me. And then they can also find me on 57. So for people who are not from Lesotho who may be listening, they can just add in the code +266, and then the number would be 57794658. Number is also available on WhatsApp if maybe people would prefer to chat via WhatsApp. And then those are like the platforms that we are available on. We also have a LinkedIn page, which is also called Abroad Studies Academy.
Thank you so much for your time, for taking like time out of your day to do this interview.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun and so much needed.
It was so informative. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, SkulChat, or subscribe directly on our website, which is podcast.skulchat.com, to get updated every time we release new episodes and don't miss a thing.
This podcast is brought to you by
SkulChat, an online learning platform for high school and tertiary students with all the learning resources a student will ever need.
Visit SkulChat.com to sign up now.